My name is Randy Bliles, and I'm the Director of Harbor Crest Counseling, located in Pomona, New York. This video and the ones that come after are intended to help both clients that are dealing with the conditions that I cover, and also therapists to provide some information on how best to work with it. Today's topic is trauma. The differences between clients that are coming in that have been through trauma and gone to therapy have been great. There are some that have been in therapy for years and didn't know what condition they had and felt that there was something wrong with them, or have had it avoided for a period of time, sometimes because they've avoided it, sometimes because therapists haven't known how to deal with it. Either way, they wound up having to go through additional time in a condition that they didn't understand, having symptoms that are normal for going through the situation, and not knowing what to do about it. So when we're talking about trauma today, trauma can be described as anything from sexual abuse to physical abuse, and at times verbal abuse. From being a crime victim, I've had people with knifings, kidnappings, and guns to the head, robberies. Any kind of a condition that's horrific, feels several symptoms that we'll be going into in a minute, and impacts their life. The conditions that I point out for trauma are having a couple of different key parts. One is that the trauma is re-experienced. Could be nightmares, could be that something in their environment kicks up that feeling without necessarily the person knowing the trigger, and that they feel depression or anxiety and can't figure out from where. For example, if somebody was raped by a person with a beard, years later they can wind up passing somebody on the street that, without them knowing, kind of beneath the radar, kicks up the feeling of anxiety from that trigger, and it feels overwhelming in today. So something in the past kicks up feelings that get experienced in today. A lot of times it will be panic or depression. For me, the goal in therapy is to do several things. One, to educate them on the condition. Two, to wind up pointing out those connections and those triggers and what's going on, that is not random, that it is, for lack of a better way of putting it, a conditioned response. That, like the dog that would hear the bell every time that it was fed, we call Pavlov, that the dog eventually wound up reacting to the bell as opposed to previously when it heard the bell together with the food. So, as humans, because that experience has been so profound when there's been that traumatic experiences, that trigger in yesterday, that rape or sexual abuse by the person with the beard, gets felt to be a panic attack today, but the roots are very much in before. An officer that I worked with that had been through 9/11, as he passed a smokestack in Queens, one day hit a panic attack and couldn't figure out why. In therapy, what we did was to identify that it was connected to the black cloud that came out on 9/11 and enveloped him and blew him under a fire truck, and his getting out and stepping over dead bodies afterwards. That black cloud triggered a memory that was played out in today. If I'm going through trauma myself, I need someone outside, external, to help me through. I cannot be going through it myself and outside guiding myself through. Same thing with therapy. The therapist has to help do a number of things. One, to help reduce symptoms, and two, to help point out that connection between yesterday and today, and number three, to help work through those feelings. And again, they're rooted in yesterday. I use hypnosis, other people use EMDR. What's important is that it gets dealt with. And again, education on the condition is the first step. One of the problems that sometimes comes up for people prior to meeting with me is that the therapist, for whatever reason, either doesn't understand trauma, doesn't know it, or avoids it. And of course, sometimes clients will avoid it. If avoidance worked, I'd be very much in favor. But it doesn't work that way. It's like putting a whole bunch of feelings in an oil tank, or a tank of some kind under pressure of, I don't want to think about it, I don't want to feel it, and shoving feelings and experiences in that over and over again until they become under pressure. As therapists, I want together with clients to open up that series of things, but not bring it all the way open, not open it with the client if they say no, but to have them, as they're comfortable, opening it up a little at a time and letting out whatever they feel comfortable with. The client, you, are in charge of talking about it or not talking about it. It's your choice. If you say no, that answer needs to be no. Not the therapist saying yes, you say no, and going ahead either way. You need to have the control. The client needs to have the control. My job to guide through, to lead through a path to help to get out the other side, but at your pace. Not my pace, but your pace. The client is in control. And by doing that, that tank, as it things come up little by little, that tank gets under less pressure. And it becomes easier and easier. It is more painful keeping those things in that tank than working them through. Now, again, that tank we talked about, again, under pressure. As a therapist, I don't shove a shovel into it, I don't shove a pick into it, I don't dig. I more move the dirt aside and let it come up on its own. Trauma and post-traumatic stress have a number of different symptoms. One of them is re-experiencing the trauma. That could be nightmares. That could be through having those connections of, again, yesterday kicking up something today, reminders of the trauma to pick up the feeling. But the trauma is re-experienced. There can be psychic numbing, which is a feeling out of touch, or dissociation, that it's so overwhelming that there's kind of like a feeling of separation where somebody feels like they're looking at what's going on and they're emotionally distant. It is a protective piece. There can be survivor guilt or guilt overall for something that was done to that person. And there's something called hypervigilance. Hypervigilance being the scanning for danger all over the place. All of those symptoms and some others can be overwhelming, but they are workable. Trauma and post-traumatic stress are not pathology. They are not something wrong with the person. They are an understandable reaction to horrific circumstances. So PTSD, for me, is an understandable normal condition that doesn't say something is wrong with the client, but that they are adjusting to those things that they've gone through and have gone through hell. And that there is a way out.